everybody, welcome back. My name is Ryan Selvy. Thank you so much for bearing with me with the sudden cancellation last week. I came down with the flu, and I'm mostly over it. I like to think that I'm over it. Still got a nasty cough, so if I mute myself, or I have to cough, I'll try to mute myself. But thank you for being here. This is File New. This is the regularly weekly show on Wednesdays that goes over creator news, resources, spotlighting artists, updates in the tech world, design world, art world, creator world, you name it. And I just want to make it as valuable and resourceful to you as possible. And we are going over a bunch of different news today. We've got a lot of things. All the links are always available to the on the Raindrop, which is always linked in the description, both here on YouTube and on Behance. Hello to everyone that is tuning in live. Hello to Alyssa and Arif and Tracy. We've got people from Bangladesh and England, Brooklyn, you name it. Also, hello over to everyone on Behance. If you're watching the replay of this, I promise I try to make it as digestible as possible for those who were unable to make it live. And I am glad that you're here and you're watching. So hopefully it still is a resource to you and whatnot. But without further ado, we can hop into our first segment. We normally have several segments on the show, and the first one being news. So let's go and hop into some news. So in our very first news, since this is on Adobe Live after all, I like to do some Adobe updates. Adobe Max is happening over in London in 8 days. It is the gigantic conference that happens yearly for Adobe, and it happens in both America and over in London. The one for London is only 8 days away. And you can attend it virtually, which is really nice. You can also attend it in person. There's a bunch of different keynotes that will be resourceful, going over new tools, new updates, you name it. And like I said, you can hop into all of these and more over links over on the Raindrop. It's under episode 84. And you can see that with this one, I link directly to the place where you can register and get information on who is talking. You'll notice a lot of recognizable faces like James Barnard or Liz Mosley, Andy Lambert, Claudie. So all of these are ones that I feel like normally show up a lot of times on this show. And, you know, you have the ability to go and attend virtually. And if you want to make it in person, unfortunately, it's sold out. But you can sign up to be notified if additional passes become available. I had a really good time when I went to Miami, and it's always a really good resource to have. So something to go ahead and check out. Also, thank you, Wade, for being our moderator today. This is on Adobe Live after all, and I wanted to give an update that there is a call for content. We're looking for some new shows for May through the end of June. These would be a limited series run for between the beginning of May and then to the Adobe week-long summer shutdown at the beginning of July. And basically, this is your opportunity to pitch your show and get funded by Adobe to create a show that is engaging with the community and talking about design or photography or video or express. And this is your chance to kind of come to the table and say, I have an idea. I want to maybe work on live streaming this. I love live streaming personally. I've been on and off with Adobe for several years now, and they've been really great to me with creating live streams and being able to create something like File New. So if this is something that you're interested in, this is a open call, and it is open until next Wednesday, so 7 days from now, the day before Adobe Max. And you are able to kind of go in there and come up with a great show. And you know, you can put as many as you want in there, and then it will be available for the team to review. Then on to some industry news. There is a Bluesky update for you guys. Bluesky, as you know, is a micro blogging platform that kind of is similar to X or Threads, Mastodon, you name it. They recently updated their service to actually have chat reactions and an explore page, which is really cool. As you guys know, there is a constant kind of back and forth with all these programs. This is coming from reporting from Sarah Perez at TechCrunch. And this is an update that happened actually last week. But as you guys know, I was sick, so I was unable to do it. There is always updates for the growing platform. It's built on the AT protocol, and they're trying to kind of experiment with the idea of things that are trending and popping up between and getting suggested accounts, and you name it. I am over on Bluesky at ryanselvy.com, RYANSELV.com. Tracy says, and it is not pronounced Bluesky like I've been saying. What do you mean? How how have you been calling it Bluesky? Blue sky is like, it's not a made up word. It's I mean, I know it's one word, but it's not forever. Oliver says, are you on Bluesky, Ryan? Not sure if you've mentioned it. All right, Oliver, calm it down here. Also, hello to Peter and Robert, Oliver and Perva and Penny and Carol, Franco, Rick, of course, all over Keys, all over on Behance. I do see you guys, so it's good to see. Bliss says, LOL Bluesky, as does Oliver. So you're making an impression, Tracy. And then we always got to talk about it. I'm so sorry. We'll keep it short. TikTok and its availability for American markets is always up in the air, but now it's going to be around for at least 75 more days. Well, 75 days minus whatever this was when this was posted. This was posted onto Passion Fruit, which you guys know is a site that I regularly check for resourceful updates on social media. And it is saying that apparently they are now in this process of being able to have it approved for 75 days ever since April 8th. It says, according to Bloomberg, Attorney General Pam Bondi sent the tech giant a letter on April 5th, and the letter reportedly urged Apple to follow the president's latest executive order, which halts the enforcement of the TikTok ban for another 75 days. This is from Charlotte Colombo. And yeah, I mean, we could hop into the whole history of it. We talk about it every single week. Who knows if TikTok's going to be around? I would just always say, from Ryan Selvy, diversify your social standing, because if you put all your eggs in one basket, whether it is TikTok or it's something else, and that thing goes down, then all your hard work is lost. So diversify your presence online, and then hopefully you don't lose it all if one of them tends to, get cut out of your country or blocked. But of course, other news stories like this have been popping up all year, but Neptune is a new TikTok competitor, and it launches next week. This is also coming from Passion Fruit. This is yet another vertical video social platform for you. This is something that I feel like a lot of people are trying to have take off. The big thing here is they're really focusing on the ability to turn off your metrics if you don't want other people to see how many likes or shares or whatever it has. Like if you want to just keep it all locked down. I know Instagram played with this years ago, and then I guess they never rolled it out because I can still see links. But it is something interesting to see as it goes. It says another interesting feature is Hopback, which enables users to pick up where they left off when watching a video rather than having it start all over again. And they said, when testing the app, TechCrunch noted that it currently lacks in-app editing tools and direct messaging. However, Neptune says it's currently working on adding features like live stream capability, music integrations, and the ability to make playlists. So it seems like it has a lot of catching up to do. I don't know who is behind it as far as who is publishing it, but it's enough that Passion Fruit picked it up and rolled with it. You can always edit your videos, of course, on Premiere, and they actually have presets that you can go and you can check out that if you wanted to, for whatever, make an edit in both vertical and horizontal. There's actually a reframing tool within Premiere Pro, which is really cool. So if you edit a horizontal video, and then let's say that you want to bring it into a horizontal thing, I'm going to go ahead and just pull up like a promo from wherever ago. I think I recorded it in vertical though, so I don't know. Also, I'm going to hope that I'm not sharing audio because I say the weirdest things when I'm making these. But if we were to go here and we go to a new sequence from clip, you can see that you can go into your sequence and your sequence settings. And there's actually a bunch of ones that are already kind of there for you for horizontal. But if I were to go to create a new sequence, file new, hey, that's the name of the show, and then go to sequence. There's actually a few on here that you can already have that have social media portrait, 9:16, 30 frames per second. If you want to have it square, which I don't think a lot of people even really have anymore, That's available. You also have portrait for 4x5, which is kind of the smaller shrunk one for thing. And these are all things that are automatically kind of just available in your presets, which is really nice and a helpful resource. Then you can always go in and you can switch up the auto reframe sequence, which is down here. And that's going to be the thing that I was talking about when you're going into the ability to switch from a target video to make it into vertical. So this is 16 by 9, which means it's 16 wide by 9 high. And you can say, I want to target the aspect ratio to be 9 by 16. You can say create, and then it will do a little bit of work. And then I'm going to mute this because I don't know what I say. And then as you see, as my head moves around, it's going to try to keep me in place. What am I doing with my face? Probably saying some expletives, but it is something that is resourceful and really quick. And then you kind of have that, and then you can kind of go off of that, which is really nice. But that's all to say, Neptune hasn't launched yet. Neptune does not have video editing, but luckily you've got Adobe, so that can help you out. Hello to Madi, I'm home. I want to hear the weird things, Ryan. It's Griffin. Hey, Griffin. Nice to see you, Griffin. Sean is saying another social media. Yes, I know. Alyssa wants to know if I'm going to try Neptune. You know, I don't know. I'm not great at doing the social short form video. I will admit that. But I'm always down to try new things, just like Skylight. Skylight is the new TikTok competitor that also just launched on the AT protocol. The AT protocol is what Bluesky runs off of. I know I drone on a lot about protocols and what this means and what that looks like, but basically, I'll try to make it short, is that when you use your email and you have a Yahoo account and a Gmail account, they can interact with each other because email is a protocol. It's something that exists outside of the platforms that can be universally understood between apps, and then you can use those different apps to then siphon in. So like if you want to go onto Outlook and you want to merge in your Gmail, you can do that. Basically, this is taking that idea and making it for social media. And so Skylight Social is a new app that just launched, but is focused on vertical video in the same way that TikTok is focused on vertical video, except you use your login credentials from Bluesky so that you still have the same followers and you're still following the same people, and then you're able to edit it and change it from there. I have not yet tried it out, but I probably will. But I also don't check out TikTok too much. So we'll see if it hooks me in a way that maybe finally gets around. But as with anything else, it's always kind of interesting to see how people interact with these platforms differently because you post different things to different platforms. And then one last social media update is about OpenAI. This one doesn't even have any sort of like messaging or logo kind of that popped up. It's just in the very early stages of it, and it kind of popped around the internet a lot. Basically, according to TechCrunch from Aisha Malik, who we reference a lot, says that OpenAI is building its own X-like social media network. According to a new report from The Verge, the project is still in the early stages, but there's an internal prototype focused on ChatGPT's image generation that contains a social feed. The report states that it's unknown if OpenAI plans to launch the social network as a standalone app or if it plans to integrate it within the service itself. So just know that everything is 1,000 new social media services. So just, as I said, diversify, focus on the content. The content's what comes first. Edit it in Premiere, then you can kind of upload it everywhere, or, edit it in Photoshop, and then you can upload it as, But speaking of other social networks, I know we're watching this on YouTube, but we also have a presence over on Twitch, and Roller Troll is one of the shows that is available over on Twitch. And our good friend Wade, who happens to be moderating, has been creating these cut downs of his fun show where the audience is responsible for voting on things that the dice are rolling. It's better shown than explained. So let's check out one of his cut downs.
So we could do this like a blister pack, like a giant blister pack, which I love that idea. Like if any of you have bought toys or anything in the last, I don't know, ever, they're usually in a blister pack. But strong plastic film, yeah, it's like bulletproof plexi or something. Not like the same bulletproof stuff they used for the Cybertron.
And thank you to Wade for sharing that. That was one from a few weeks ago that he actually had updated and had then created that cut down for it. But he's always creating really crazy and weird things. He's back next Monday, and I believe that's at, correct me if I'm wrong, Wade, is that at 12:30 Eastern? Is that 12:30 or 1:30 Eastern? It's one of those two. But I will make sure I update you guys and check it out. Of course, you guys can check out our Discord. It is linked in the chat below, or the linked in the description below in both YouTube and on Behance as well. And then, of course, we have our Motion Hotline Boys, which, if you guys are motion designers, is a really good resource. This is with Evan Abrams and Kyle Hamrick. They had a show earlier this morning. And it was a good old time. I had this promo that we launched on Instagram earlier this week, but I still think it is a good indicative explanation as to what they worked on today. Trust me here. I'm going to get it to play in a second. It's not playing. Why are you not playing? We're going to hit loop and see if that fixes it.
Hello, everybody. This is Evan Abrams from Motion Design Hotline, and this week, we're going to grab the null by the horns. Connecting elements together lets you make amazing and intricate animations in After Effects, but sometimes it can get confusing. But all of that is changing now, and Evan and Kyle will show you how to do what your AE work demands with the fabulous new null creation commands. So enroll in the École de Null and install the new soul of the null directly into your skull. Nailed it.
There we go. Ooh. No, Evan, go away. Stop. Stop, Evan. Go away. That is Motion Design Hotline. You can find that on the YouTube. You can find that on Behance. I also sound so old whenever I say the YouTube, but I mean the Adobe Live YouTube, which is always a great one. They're saying in the Behance chat, this was a good one, and Jack was saying it's a good one. And I want to check it out myself because I want to learn the new null stuff, but I have not yet learned it. So excited to watch and check it out. And then our last news story of the day before we hop into our next segment is this weird little UV printer thing, and it is by Anker, who I have a bunch of like batteries from. But I saw this on The Verge earlier, either today or yesterday, and it is a UV printer that can fake wood and paint textures on various materials. This is coming from Andrew Lazuski over on The Verge, and it is saying that it is a $1,899 UV printer, and I guess it can then create faux textures replicating the look and feel of materials like wood, crocodile skin, and paintings. You can see that in here they're doing it like on slats, but it has a flatbed that can be swapped for an optional rotational unit that can print directly on mugs and bottles, which is fascinating to me. So if you are creating your own merch, or you're creating something that you want to then replicate onto a physical piece, I've always never understood how to necessarily do that, especially at home. But this looks like this is something that you can just kind of have on your desktop. I mean, it looks like it's probably about the size of a desktop computer. And I don't know the exact process behind it as to how you create the things that then go into it. I'm sure there's something that you could probably do with Illustrator or Photoshop in here and bring it in, but I'm not entirely sure. I just thought it was a really interesting mechanism. And yes, they posted this morning, so I saw it this morning. And Jack is saying, I want that. Why is everything so expensive? Penny's saying, yikes at the price. Oliver's saying it looks more like the size of a microwave. Yes. I excuse myself. It is the size of a microwave instead. But that is all the news stories that we have. But we have plenty more show for here. If this is your first time here, thank you for being here. Make sure you're sticking around. We have Font of the Week coming up next. Let's do that. So font of the week is what we do every single week when we break down 3 fonts that are available on Adobe Typekit, also known as just Adobe Font now. It has not been called Adobe Typekit in God knows how long, but I still call it Typekit on accident. And the very first one we have here is called Hot House. It is from Supertype, and it is a sans serif font. It looks very fun. It has lots of different weights that you can mess with, and then also different accents that are available. This one is definitely probably the cleanest, but more fun with it. It's created by Jürgen Huber from Supertype. You can see it here, and they have a bunch of different examples as well on Adobe Fonts, as they normally do. And you can see how, like, with capital O's, there can be kind of an underline O, which gives me the reminiscent of a American Horror Story. I know they use kind of like that identifier. It says it was designed in 2001 for the Glasgow School of Art and is still used by the university. It's inspired by Charles R. McIntosh, explorations of letterforms, renowned architect of the Glasgow School of Art. Based on a square, the almost entirely monospaced hothouse corresponds with McIntosh's Art Nouveau architecture. So we like to always go in here and test out said font with File New. So I'm going to create a new text layer. We'll go and check out Hothouse, and we'll go to bold because we like to make a statement. I'm going to make it not 400 gigantic pixels high, and that says lorem ipsum, which is not File New. So in all caps, I'm writing out File New. There's no, additives to that, but we can also do File New, and if we do all lowercase, it looks like it adds a few little funky dory kind of things to the L or the W. You can always explore all of the things that a typeface has to offer if you go to Window Glyph, and then you can kind of see all the different accents that they have for different languages or different decoration. And then sometimes if you scroll all the way down, and we'll see, I have not actually checked on this one yet, sometimes they have symbols or glyphs that then you can use. For example, they have the infinity symbol, which is nice, and also some text. They also have a random thumbprint. So if you want to commit crimes, this is the typeface for you. So let's actually see how the thumbprint looks really big. Let's scale that puppy up. Oops. It was like up? Do you mean down? Look at that. Whose thumbprint is that? I don't know, but they killed your neighbor. Boom, boom, boom. File New. Coming to a true crime network near you real soon. Okay, so that's Hothouse. Next up, we have June, which is great because we're right on the cusp of June, which is terrifying because I'm getting married very soon. Not that I'm scared to get married. I'm just scared that I have not finished everything that I need to do. June is a variable font, which, if you guys know, is a way that you can kind of adjust the size and width of a typeface down to degrees and decimals. Now, if you go over to June, over on Adobe Fonts, you can see that there is a nice write-up about it. It is from the Fernanda Cozy designer and Oscar Guerrero from Furcozy. It is a tribute to a scientific pioneer. She would become the first person to see a coronavirus using microscope techniques she developed. She is finally being acknowledged for virology and breakthroughs she made half a century ago. And like I said, it is a variable, so you can adjust the axis here, and you can see how crazy you want it to be between it being kind of monospaced to variable. And there's different styles that you can have that can be between the two if you just want to go from all the way to point A to point B. As some background for Cozy, Born in Argentina, attended the University of Buenos Aires, where she completed a degree in graphic design and postgraduate specialization in type design, completing several courses in calligraphy, lettering, and type design. Fair currently teaches in the Master of Typeface Design at the University of Buenos Aires. Furcozy's type explores rhythms, shapes, and strokes where randomness and a not-so-obvious rationality meet. Expert in nothing with opinions on everything and successful in all kinds of failures. When she's not drawing letters, she's probably dancing to the rhythm of 90s pop. I love expert in nothing with opinions on everything. That's very relatable to me. And some very pretty typeface here. And so there we go. We have file new. I think that's all lowercase, but let's check out all uppercase. Yep. File new, built like that. Hippy dippy vibes. And then finally we have Benton, which is a modern display. Very clean. This is actually part of a new update that is coming from Monospace. I'm going to do both a mix here because I feel like that's when this feels the most contained and structured. It's available in 44 styles. You heard that right, 44. This is coming from Dana, I think it's Dana. It's Dyana Weissman and Richard Lipton from Monotype. And like I said, 44 things. It was Benton Modern was first prepared as a text face by the Font Bureau for the Boston Globe and the Detroit Free Press. Design and proportions were taken from Morris Fuller's Benton's Turn of the Century Expanded, faithfully reviving this epoch-making magazine and New Text Roman. The italic was based on Century Schoolbook, and the display cuttings were prepared by Diana Wiseman and Richard Lipton in 2008. And it's a really fun, or fine, I guess, clean font that you could use for very professional or, I don't know, professional and refined kind of products that you're working on. You could easily make it into both a display font, or you could also, if it's, you know, thick enough in places, you can always make it into something of a body font. Now, as we do with every week on Font of the Week, as the name describes, we need to pick one. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a poll for you guys. And it's going to be over on YouTube. So if you're on Behance, make sure you go and you check it out over on the YouTube, just in case you want to vote for it. I'm going to put the 3 options here as Hot House, June, and Benton. I'm going to start the poll. And before the end of the stream, we will decide who is the winner. Do you guys want to know who I want to win? Well, I'm not going to tell you because that will add bias. And a lot of times not in my favor. I feel like you guys vote against me a lot. Sorry, my cough. Oh, no. Give me a second. And we're back. Sorry about that. But I muted it so you guys didn't have to hear me scream into the microphone. We already have some people voting. Make sure you guys go ahead and hop over to YouTube to vote for it. I will also put the link quickly. Oh, Wade already did. Thank you, Wade. Thank you for putting the Wade poll in the Behance chat. But we have plenty more to offer you guys while we're voting on that and getting into fights in the chat. So let's go ahead and we can hop over to some resources. Resources, I love to kind of highlight things that I find a lot of times on Instagram Reels. That I think is such a great way to learn things. There is this update from Doron Studio. That's DORON STUDIO, as you spell studio. This is a really cool way of creating this glitchy scanned CRT vibe directly in Photoshop. And he does a really good walkthrough. I reached out to him and he said I could share the video on stream. So with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and set this up. I want to make sure that my external audio is properly shared. So we're going to switch that to here. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to pull this up so that you guys can see it directly on the site. Like I said, all of this is available on the Raindrop if you want to check it out. And this one in particular is under Doron.
Code to making the CRT modulation effect in Photoshop. Let me show you how. In a 300 dpi document, drag in your image, download this plugin for Photoshop, click on render and choose the medium modulation algorithm. You can turn up or down the DPI depending on your image, and make sure you really crank down the contrast. Adjust the brightness as well based on your image, and if you turn up the denoise, you can smooth out the lines of the modulation even more. Now click on save and make the render into a smart object. Add a Gaussian blur of about 4 pixels and set the blending mode of a smart filter to screen. Then repeat that process a few more times and increase the blur value each time. This will give a realistic glow. On top of all that, add a hue and saturation adjustment layer, check on colorize and mess with the values, then add an exposure adjustment layer on top and crank it up just a little bit. Now this is optional, but you can add these broken color textures and set them to overlay for more glitchiness, and boom. If you want me to send you the links for everything I used as well as the full length tutorial for this effect, check the caption below. I can't believe I cracked the code to making the CRT modulation effect in Photoshop. Let me show you.
And so naturally, he uses some external plugins here that you can also get access to. But it is really cool to see it just happen entirely in Photoshop and have kind of adjustments and creations that are then variable in the way that he moves the sliders around. I personally have not tried it yet, but I do think it's a really cool look. And it's also really nice that it's not just kind of like on top. It looks like it's physically wrapping around the different creations that you have. And in this case, he has this hand, and then he's adding cool smart filters like Gaussian blur to give an idea of a glow with adjusting the hue. Like I said, that's available on Doron Studio Instagram. And if you comment glitch on top of it, he'll then send you a bunch of stuff directly to your DMs, which is pretty neat. Next up, we have a post from Justinmullet, who is a photographer, and this isn't necessarily a resource in the way of tools where you're doing it, but this is way more of a focus on a photography understanding. So I think often people are so focused on the camera and the lenses. You can see here, down here, that Kurti Prakash 14 says, what camera and lenses are you using? Also, Uzo Jelly is saying, my photography professor always said photo can be improved by zooming in. And to be honest, he was completely right. So it's showing a very zoomed out view, the way that we kind of experience the world, but then focusing on objects of interest within a like a composition to create your compositions. So he does a really good job of laying out a few different examples where this is transformative to his creation. So if we look at the zoomed out version here, we look at the zoomed in version, and you can see the light streaks and the cool composition of kind of how this is framing and coming down. We see another one that looks kind of just like an open road, but once again, with the zoom in, obviously he's also doing a little bit of work with contrast and coloring, and focusing on exposure. But that said, this kind of framed and constructed viewport is going to be a lot more successful in creating something that's way more engaging. Once again, it always kind of starts off with an image that doesn't look that exciting, but then as you zoom it in, he's focusing on the verticals of multiple different things between the signposts and the tree and this kind of structure here that looks like a lamppost, to frame entirely the kind of piece. Whereas like over here, there are vertical pieces, but they're not framing it in a way that feels like it is built to a composition. Here, he's focusing on the light of the side of a house and kind of cropping out the rest of this other unimportant, uninteresting imagery, bringing up that contrast, focusing on some of these really cool geometric shapes that are waving alongside this smoke that is the shadow of this light. Focusing a lot here on shadow as well, with rather than focusing on just the zoom out, he finds a cool shadow on the ground and creates that to be the focus of the image. Wade says it's about finding compositions. Definitely agree. This can relate not just to your photography, but can focus on your illustrations. I know that Wade for Roller Troll recently did a illustration of a dinosaur, and then halfway through it was prompted to change the pose, and he created a way more dynamic and interesting pose. So sometimes it's just a matter of looking at your subject, looking at what you're creating in a new way. Jeffrey Fenna is saying, my photographer said, frame your photo and take 4 steps forward. But same idea, great advice. And Archa is very excited about these updates. Oliver says, this is what I was doing when I was photographing paths in the woods. I'm always using a long lens. The compression just makes a picture I like more. Yes, because you zoom in things in the same way that you have the JAWS zoom in with the dolly zoom as they're like backing up and zooming in. It's going to push things a lot more compressed into an idea of singular short focus than if you were maybe be kind of too zoomed out and you have so much depth. And it all comes down to preference, because sometimes zooming all the way out also can be something that can be really helpful. But just something to approach when you are coming up with new compositions. Looks like our voting over on YouTube's doing pretty well. There's a clear winner at the moment, but if you haven't voted yet, make sure you hop on over to YouTube to vote on the font of the week. But we're going to go ahead and hop into our next segment, which is called Rebrand, where we focus on different changing brands and updated products. So this week, it's something that's been kind of in the works for a little bit, but this is the New York City subway map. Looks like a spaghetti bowl. If you are familiar with New York City in any regard, you are probably familiar with this map. It has changed over the years and has not really been touched in a significant way for about 40 years or so. The subway has been around for longer than that, but this is where it's at right now. And I live down here, guys. Adobe offices are over here and here. So if you're ever in the city and you want to be close to an Adobe office, it's here or here. But I am in sweet old Brooklyn over here. Now, they recently updated it. They are rolling it out, and it went from this to this. And I'm curious to hear what you guys think about this update. If you believe that this is easier to read, if you believe this is harder to read, if this is something that you feel like still articulates the same kind of creation. Personally, I think it does a bit of a disservice to its presence as a map. It is cleaner to read the stops where it goes, but as far as looking directly at where you're going to land in the context of Manhattan, I think it's kind of breaking up the idea. Like, if I want to get out of the financial district, this isn't necessarily telling me as much. That said, I know we all kind of also rely very heavily now on Google Maps or Apple Maps or something else to kind of just tell us what stop to get off on, and we're not necessarily sitting here being like, oh, well, I want to get over to this exact street, so what is the closest? Oh, I don't know. But I also still find myself doing that a little bit. So I don't know. I feel like maybe thinner lines could have helped. Maybe not being so focused on hard angles. Is it the worst design ever in the history of redesigns? No, of course not. I still think that you can get most of the information that you need to, but I do think that it kind of takes a step back based off of what you're supposed to be doing. That said, from purely aesthetic, it's kind of cool. Looks Star Warsy, looks circuitry, looks clean. I understand how many lines are where. There's 4 lines that are going on the orange line here. There are 3 over here on green, whereas before, you had these circles, but you don't necessarily have it. Robert's saying the new one's not good. Aperva thinks the overweight lines, if you ask them. Really depends on if it works as a tool, says Penny. Keys says most trim or metro maps look like that already. Maybe it's just time to get in line. Yes, because that's what Keys is saying in response to Peter, who is saying that it looks like the Berlin Metro map. I think these are all fair, not criticisms, but even just notes. Tracy's saying it reminds me of the London Tube maps, confusing on where you are, but easy for following my route. Yes. So I think it's more focused maybe on the route following than perhaps the creation of like a map itself. Barbara says cute. Also, hello to Evie. So this is our rebrand for the week. And if you're in New York, come say hi to me. I'm down in Brooklyn. But I'll come meet you in Manhattan as well. Just let me know. Give me enough time. We should do a YouTube or a Adobe Live meetup at some point. I feel like that would be really cool. But what do we have next on the docket for you guys? We got about 15 minutes left of the show. We got plenty of links to still go through. And we got some resources that we can still check out. So let's go check out tips to improve your sketches. All right, let's check out some tips to improve your sketches. I think that could be a fun time. Back to resources. So this is coming from, I believe, Creative Block. Is that where it was? Yes, it's on Creative Block, but not entirely. I'm not gonna go through the entire article because I want to make sure you guys still read the article. They still get their clicks. But this is coming from Donato Giancola, and it says, Master artist Donato Giancola reveals how he keeps his drawing process engaging with technical hints and real-life lessons. And I did a read through this, and I think that some of the few things that really stood out to me is the very first one is keep your pencil sharp, but I think that can really relate to all different products. You want to make sure that your just materials are set up. So whether this is your Apple Pencil, whether this is you're designing something and you want to make sure that just your work is being the tool is not getting in the way of the final work. So if your mouse is broken, get a $10 mouse and update your mouse. If your monitor is a little old, like if that's going to become a part that inhibits your work, like it's most important that like you want to make sure your tools are invisible. But it also really obviously works for drawing as well. And just make sure you sharpen your pencils. I used to have an old drawing teacher that used to get so mad at me because I'd be down with the nubs. Another one is learn from the classics. This is another something that I think can really focus on not just art, but also design. You don't have to necessarily take all of the classics and then go and make those things in your own work. Like there is something said about the Bauhaus movement of just like having, no idea and raw, authentic first approaches. But I think you're going to find a lot of success and you're going to learn a lot if you find something that you like and you recreate it, not necessarily to sell it or give it anywhere else or make it as part of your work, but if you just recreate it, you're going to learn things that you didn't even realize were there, because when you go to recreate it and you're looking at it with a fine-tuned comb, you're then going to be like, oh, this is how they handled that. So like notice how someone maybe kerned or edited the tracking of type. Maybe they made all of the type uppercase and they really spread it out, and then they made it smaller and they made it a thinner weight. That's something that like when you're recreating a design, you're going to learn, where you otherwise, when you look at it, you might be like, why does this look the way it looks? This is the same thing with learning from the classics. If you're drawing from similar things that you look at that are like old drawings or old compositions or old sculptures, you're going to see that they are conveying and articulating different messaging through ways that your brain isn't necessarily connecting. And so if you have that understanding, you can go. Another one is having toned paper. I think that's really, really good. In the direct article, it's saying, back in 1998, I bought my first toned paper sketchbook and have never gone back to white. The incredible thrill of hitting a 2-minute drawing with a few white chalk marks to make it come to life is volumetrically is a high no other. Now, this is something that I have found great success with, especially with charcoal drawing, but also even with design or creating something. Like if you start on a gray background, you then have a place where you can go up and down. Whereas if you start with just black or just white, you're going to have to only go lighter or only go darker. And if you start with a mid-tone, you're going to have a way better time, because you're going to be able to build in two directions and you're going to be able to then create something from there. That this works with color, of course, with design. This works with drawing, of course, as it goes. But this could really be anything. Just try to find the middle point and then move from there. And like I said, I don't want to read all 15 things. I think you guys should go read it. But the last thing that I will call out is negative spaces or shapes too. So this could also be flipping your perspective of the idea of like, okay, you're drawing this, you know, maybe you're not going to start with drawing the outline of the arm. Maybe you draw this negative space. Same thing with type, you know. There's some really cool type that really just focuses on like the curve of the two, and the human brain can understand what the two looks like because of limited information. You can also do that with design. Just take something, invert it, press Control I on something, and see what you can still understand. See how it changes things. See what you can do to highlight the negative space to then go back to the regular. Same with photography, like focusing on, you know, the shadow of an object rather than the object itself to see how that works. Focus on places that you don't otherwise focus. And then one last thing that I will focus. They say do thumbnails, and I think for that it's just zoom out. Really work small if you can. You know, go into Photoshop, zoom all the way out, see how that affects things, and how, you know, you can understand it at a high glance or something figured out. Rick says, do you lift, bro? Hey, you know what? I'm trying to work out a little bit for my wedding. Okay. I'll take it as a compliment. All right. Boom. And Wade is saying that's a pro tip. You can silhouette both the positive and negative spaces to get more accurate drawings. Yes. And Wade is a wonderful source of inspiration. Make sure you follow Roller Troll as well to figure out other ways that he approaches design. And anyways, we've got about like 7 minutes left, so I think I am going to close the poll. So you have about 10 seconds to vote on the font of the week if you have not yet. I don't think it's going to make a change because it looks like the winner is clearly going to be Hot House. Hot House, folks. So we're going to move the crown over here to Hot House. It is this fun one with all the weird, goofy things with 55% of the vote. So props to Hot House. It was a little bit even. You guys really did not like June. June got only 16%. So you guys are not into the funky, psychedelic looking type of typeface here. Wade says that he is 2 for 2. What is going on lately? Yeah, is that your vote? Were you going for that font of the week? And like I said, this is available on Adobe Fonts. You can just go ahead and activate it. And there are so many different weights that you can then kind of work off of. Trace says, boo, kidding. No, you can say boo. I've said boo before. There have been people that have won things in the past, and I've said it's not justified. Blissa said, I like June, but I like Hot House better. Keys says, well deserved, and Clever says, hot. Alyssa says, justice for June. Yeah, see, I love animosity. All right, and then we got a few things left. One that I want to do is, I guess, let's do Spotlight real quick. And then that way we can also create one last poll here. And the question is going to be, do you have to be good at drawing to be a good designer? And we're going to have yes or no. I'm going to start that poll. Because in our Spotlight, we are going to be focusing on Edgykatrina, who is a friend of the show, that is talking about that in particular. So let's check out Spotlight. Now, this is something that came up in a different article that I saw, and I also linked to that in the raindrop as well. But I really wanted to focus on Edgykatrina's creation here, because she actually created something about this topic on her Instagram. So let's check it out.
Questions is, do you have to know how to draw well to be a good designer? And my answer to that is no. I wish someone had told me that when I was first starting out, because I was super insecure about my drawing abilities. When I want to draw something more realistic, I literally just take one of my own pictures or videos, trace over that, and call it a day. The thing is, a good drawing is subjective. The more you practice drawing, the more you develop your own style, which to me is more important than drawing well anyway. Even if you don't think you're a good artist, chances are there's something really charming about your personal style. So draw, or trace, or do a combination of both. There's no wrong way to do it. One of my most asked questions is, do you have to know how to draw well to be a good designer? And my answer to that is no.
If you don't follow Edgykatrina, she is wonderful. She's a great designer out in the LA area. And she adds a lot of her process, and she talks a lot about kind of her opinions and her experience as a 20-something-year-old designer approaching the design world. She even got laid off, and she talks about how that impacted her after it was a job that she was really excited about. And she also has a really great YouTube channel, so make sure you check out Edgykatrina. I think this is a really good point. I think that there is a lot to be said about really crafting your fine crafting your skill and being able to be a savant in everything that's drawing. But I know that Creative Block also coincidentally did something about this on March 22nd. This is Georgia Coggin. It says, do graphic designers need to be good at art? Designers have mixed opinions. So it is something that is back and forth, and I think you should definitely check this out as a read to hear people's different perspectives. I think it depends on the products that you go after, and I think it can be based off of the kind of art that you want to create and the designs you want to create. If you're going to be a medical illustration person, I think that yes, maybe you should probably figure out how to do things. But at the same time, if you are creating fun little graphics for greeting cards, or if you're creating infographics, you can have your own style, and everything doesn't have to be this incredible, amazing photorealistic illustration, because sometimes that's not even the vibe. There are entire brands that are built off of different styles where that doesn't have. Clever says, sketches do many things, and most of all, it should speak to you. And also, I think it is a big part of using your own reference material. She talks about taking pictures of herself and then just kind of tracing her own self, or maybe even just referencing off of your own self, I think is something that can be very helpful and something that can, get you really far. And you will learn when you go over that things as well. So something to check out. And then the last thing I think we'll kind of spotlight and focus on is this article from Fast Company, the most influential design book you've never heard of. And this is a interesting person that I had never actually heard of myself. And it is written by Grace Snelling for Fast Company. It says that it is all about Walter Cash, and he's a little-known Swiss designer and calligraphy teacher who had a major but often overlooked influence on modern typography. In 1949, he published a manual called Lettering, which taught students how to draw letter forms and introduced the concept of type families. Though the book was printed in very small numbers, it quietly shaped modern type design and inspired iconic fonts like Universe and Helvetica, which are obviously used everywhere, from the New York subway signs to Apple products. The contributions were mostly forgotten and overshadowed by his students until now, but a modern reprint of Lettering was just released by the Type Foundry Dynamo and Museum for Gestalting and a design studio Omnigroup. The reprint says, true to the original, is now available, making it accessible for a new generation of designers, and hopefully it will get recognition for Walter Koch, because he shaped the foundation of fonts that we use today. And it has a whole write-up. You can learn more about it. You can see links and pictures of what inside of it looked like, and something to learn about. If you want to add it to your wish list, it's something you can always check out. But that's all the time we have for today. Thank you to everyone who tuned in, both regulars and new viewers, chatters and lurkers. It's great to have you here. We will be back next week at the same time and the same place, which is 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, right here on Adobe Live. Make sure you stay tuned, because up next is Office Hours with Andrew Hochradel, and they're doing the 5th anniversary. Nick Longo as well. Basically, Office Hours has been around for 5 years. It says celebrate 5 years of community. Tune in for live giveaways, antics, and the knowledge you need to level up your career. Thank you to everyone for being here. Thank you for popping in. And thank you to Wade, of course, always for moderating. And also, our poll is ending with pretty close to split, with 17 votes. It says, do you need to be good at drawing to be a good designer? 64% no, say no. 35% say yes. So thank you, guys. And I'll see you all next week. Thanks again. See you on Discord. See RyanSelvy.com for Bluesky and Ryan Selvy for Instagram. All right. Thanks for watching.